Hello, I hope you're excited about the next couple of chapters of our book. So we are reading The Giggler Treatment by Roddy Doyle, and it is so funny. So this chapter we're on is called Chapter 7, which should probably be called Chapter 5, I think. But let's call it, I don't know what chapter it's supposed to be. So we've got a picture there of the shoe, of the foot and the shoe heading down. The gigglers waited. The shoe was now exactly 12 inches and a little bit from the you-know-poo. Any second now, whispered the biggest giggler. They waited for the thop, 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 Mr. Mac hopping on one foot and trying not to fall over. They waited for the little thump, Mr. Mac leaning against the wall, only 3 inches of brick and cement away from the giggler's nose. The biggest giggler looked over the wall and ducked back down. 10 inches, she said. Cod, said the seagull. Yuck. Oh, it's the seagull, isn't it, sitting in the tree who doesn't like fish. Cod, said the seagull. Yuck. The middle-sized giggler crammed her other hand and one of her feet into her mouth to stop the giggles from escaping. She fell off the bike, but she made no noise because she landed on soft, long grass. Get off, said the grass. No, it didn't. I'm only messing. But the time has come to explain why the gigglers were doing this to Mr. Mac. What could he have done? Chapter 8. Which should probably be called chapter... Oh, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, stop messing about and get on with the story. The day before Mr. Mac's foot headed straight for the poo, just before it got too dark to play outside, the Mac brothers, Jimmy and Robbie, broke the kitchen window. They were playing football with a burst ball when it happened. Robbie Mac gave the ball a whack with his big toe. It bounced off Jimmy Mac's head, flew at the window and cracked the glass. Oh, said Robbie, my toe. Ouch, said Jimmy, me head. Whoa, said Mr. Mac, me window. He was upset when he heard the noise. He was in the bathroom putting a plaster on his finger. He'd cut his finger, putting new glass into the kitchen window just 5 minutes before the ball cracked it. He ran downstairs into the kitchen and saw the broken window, so he kept running out to the garden. Who did that? He shouted. Not us, said Robbie. The ball did it. I only just fixed it, said Mr. Mac. It's not fair. Mr. Mac had had a very hard day. That's 7 times I've had to fix that window, he said, in 7 days. He looked at Robbie and Jimmy. Boys, 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 he said. How many times am I going to have to fix it? 8, said Robbie. Robbie wasn't being smart or cheeky when he said that. He was giving Mr. Mac the correct answer. The window had been broken 7 times, and now he was going to have to fix it once more. 7 and 1 made 8. So Robbie was right. Oh, but poor Mr. Mac had had a very hard day. He had spent all day testing cream crackers, and they were very boring biscuits. In fact, Mr. Mac didn't think that they were really biscuits at all. They were always perfectly, boringly square, and they tasted like nothing except what they were. Boring old cream crackers. And poor Mr. Mac had been measuring and eating them all day. He was stuffed to the tonsils with cream crackers. He knew that he'd dream about cream crackers tonight. He always had the same cream cracker dream after a day of measuring and eating cream crackers. It wasn't a dream about killer ninja cream crackers or beautiful brown-eyed cream crackers or anything interesting like that. No chance. In this dream, Mr. Mac was always surrounded by talking cream crackers, hundreds of them, all saying the most boring things ever. Oh, that's a good picture. Have a look. There's a picture of Mr. Mac in bed, and then there's just loads and loads of cream crackers on his duvet cover, on his pillow. Boring, boring, boring. Babies are smaller than adults. Isn't that interesting? Toilet paper is usually white, but not always. Isn't that interesting? A car has 4 wheels, but a bike has only 2. Isn't that interesting? All night the talking cream crackers would be yapping at him. That was another reason why Mr. Mac loved fig rolls. They never talked when he went to sleep. He wasn't looking forward to bedtime, even though he was very tired. He could already hear the cream crackers mumbling away in his brain. Some pyjamas have stripes and some don't have any stripes at all. Isn't that interesting? But that wasn't the worst part of his day. Something strange had happened. At lunchtime, a vulture, you'll have to have a little look at what a vulture is. It's a type of bird. A vulture had swooped down from a tree and robbed his sandwiches. There's a picture of a vulture. Have you seen one of them before? And before he'd had time to get over the shock, the vulture came back and robbed his flask. Then he'd had to fix the broken kitchen window for the 7th time in 7 days, and he'd cut his finger doing it. He was hungry and tired, and his finger was sore, and the cream crackers were already yapping at him. If you put your feet in water, they get wet. Isn't that interesting? The vulture had stuck his tongue out at him as he flew away with the flask. The flask had been full of chicken soup and Mr. Mac's all-time favourite, and now he thought his children were being cheeky. Mr. Mac had had enough. Go up to your room, he told Robbie and Jimmy. But I'm hungry, said Jimmy. I don't care, said Mr. Mac. Go up to your room. And that was why, the very next morning, the Pooh was waiting for Mr. Mac. What Mr. Mac didn't know, and what nobody else knew, was that the Gigglers were listening to him. They were in the cupboard under the stairs. They looked at one another and nodded. The treatment, said the smallest very quietly. The treatment, said the biggest. Pooh, said the smallest. Pooh, said the biggest. Chapter something. Back at the station, the biggest Giggler ducked back down. How about now? 8 inches, and the middle-sized Giggler fell off the bike again. I'm going to stop there.